Chapter 3086. You don't know what's happened these days? I've been cultivating and only came out today. Our second floor is usually very quiet. There's no one here at all. What's going on today? Bei Chen's eyes flashed with a strong sense of curiosity, but more than that, he was puzzled and puzzled. It was as if he wanted to join in on the fun. He constantly looked around, obviously guessing all kinds of possibilities in his mind. Then why did you come out now? I've been in seclusion for a few days. I'm hungry, so I want to go to the counter to order something to eat. To be honest, I lost a little badly last time. I'm going to go into seclusion for a while to get my face back. But brother, can you tell me what you're doing? Maybe I can help. If there's something good, we can split it in half. Bei Chen's eyes flashed with a Philistine light. He kept rubbing his hands, extremely curious. Looking at Bei Chen's appearance, the cultivator couldn't help but wave his hand and say, I think you should go and order something to eat. These things don't matter at all. Don't be like that, brother. Just tell me what's going on. You've been in seclusion for the past few days. What's the use of telling you? Get out of here. The man waved his hand. His face was full of impatience, and his heart was full of disdain. Sure enough, the people living on the second floor were all a bunch of poor people. As long as they saw an opportunity, they would take advantage of it to make a fortune. He couldn't be bothered with them. When the others saw this scene, they also shifted their attention away from Bei Chen. Because Bei Chen's performance was too real. It didn't look like he was acting at all. He didn't look guilty at all. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had been paying attention to Bei Chen's situation in the room. Once Bei Chen was stopped, they would definitely rush out to help. However, Bei Chen easily got away with it. They couldn't help but smile. Bei Chen's camouflage ability is really good. Many people's attention has been diverted. When Xiren's face was brimming with a comfortable smile. His originally tense nerves relaxed in an instant, and he sat down on the chair with peace of mind. I really admire Bei Chen. If it were me, I'm afraid I would have easily exposed myself. Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but sigh. Just by looking at Bei Chen's actions, she couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat for Bei Chen. Sweet Dream continued to receive one order after another, but she wasn't happy at all. On the contrary, she was very worried. She had noticed earlier that almost all the cultivators on the second floor were being watched. No matter who walked out, they would be noticed. In this kind of situation, she didn't dare to look for Bailey Hongzhuang. Once she did, it would be the same as exposing Bailey Hongzhuang. She had stayed in the demon training tower for so long, so she wasn't unfamiliar with this kind of situation. As long as Bailey Hongzhuang was recognized, then it would be impossible for her to cultivate peacefully. Once these people made a move, they would be extremely cruel. However, if she didn't go to see Bailey Hongzhuang, then she wouldn't have any healing medicine to sell. As time passed, this would also cause dissatisfaction. With the sales of healing medicine being so hot, she really didn't know what to do now. Chapter 3087. Young Master D. A hint of joy appeared in Sweet Dream's eyes. She was just worrying about what to do, but she did not expect Bei Chen to appear here. She understood that Bei Chen must have known about the current situation, which was why he did not let Bailey Hongzhuang come personally. With Bei Chen's appearance, many people's eyes fell on him, each with their own plans. Miss Sweet Dream, I'd like to order lunch. Bei Chen smiled faintly. Hearing this, Sweet Dream was slightly stunned, but she quickly understood Bei Chen's meaning, and her expression returned to normal in an instant. The menu is here. What would you like to order? Just these few. Bei Chen reached out and handed the Cosmos sack to Sweet Dream. The rest of my belongings are here, see if it's enough. However, just as Sweet Dream was about to take the Cosmos sack, a cultivator suddenly stopped her. Wait. Bei Chen and Sweet Dream's expressions froze, and they turned to look at the cultivator. It's just ordering a dish. Do you need to use a Cosmos sack to carry it? The cultivator's eyes shone with a shrewd light. Don't tell me you're number 18. Di Baichen frowned slightly, and a hint of anger appeared on his face. I don't know what you're talking about. You don't know? The cultivator chuckled. Let me make sure. At this moment, not only this cultivator, but the eyes of the other cultivators around also became sharp in an instant. Di Baichen's appearance and actions were too suspicious. The cosmos sack was snatched away at the first moment, and Sweet Dream's face could not help but show a strong sense of fear. Once the healing medicine was discovered, it would be really troublesome. Give it back to me. Di Baichen reached out to snatch the cosmos sack back, obviously extremely angry. At this moment, almost everyone was sure that Di Baichen was in room 18 on the second floor. There was no other possibility. However, when the cultivator checked the items in the Qiankuan bag, the excitement on his face quickly disappeared. This was because he did not find any healing medicine in the cosmos sack, only a love letter. Only then did Di Baichen snatch the Qiankuan pouch. He glared at him and said, "What are you doing? I thought I found the right person. I didn't expect it to be just a love letter, asking for love. Is there a need to be so secretive?" The cultivator's face could not hide the disappointment. Di Baichen's actions were even more speechless. Some of the cultivators who were preparing to attack Di Baichen also stopped their actions. Their faces were filled with speechlessness. How could such a thing happen at a time like this? How could they not be speechless? Sweet Dream, who was originally extremely nervous, couldn't help but be stunned after hearing this. Especially after hearing the words love letter, she couldn't help but think of Bailey Hongzhuang. Her pretty face immediately turned red. Looking at Sweet Dream's expression, the crowd no longer had any doubts. Their original suspicions were completely dispelled. At this moment, Di Baichen couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Ziren was really thoughtful. He didn't think of this at first, but Ziren vividly wrote a love letter, saying that this would completely dispel everyone's suspicions about him. He never thought that this scene would really be predicted by Ziren, allowing him to survive a crisis. Chapter 3088. Di Baichen's expression was somewhat awkward. Only then did he take out another Qiankuan pouch and hand it to Sweet Dream. At this moment, no one had any interest in looking through Di Baichen's Qiankuan pouch and allowed him to pass it to Sweet Dream. Sweet Dream took the Qiankuan pouch and glanced at it briefly. She found that the Qiankuan pouch was filled with healing medicine. Her palms couldn't help but sweat as she quickly put the Qiankuan pouch away. At this moment, some of the cultivators who had been waiting in front of Bailey Hongzhuang's room walked to the counter. After knowing that Di Baichen's love letter had been stopped halfway, everyone completely dispelled their suspicions towards Di Baichen. Even when Di Baichen returned to the room, no one paid any attention to him. "Baichen, how was it? Did my love letter come in handy?" As soon as Di Baichen entered the room, Ziren couldn't help but ask. Di Baichen glanced at Ziren indifferently. "In my opinion, it's more suitable for you to do this kind of thing in the future." As soon as he said this, Ziren couldn't help but laugh loudly. "Haha, I knew it would be like this. I'm afraid that no one will suspect you anymore." "That's true. I'm afraid that no one will suspect me if I hand over any Qiankuan pouch to Sweet Dream in the future." Di Baichen revealed a helpless expression. "We naturally have outstanding talent in this area. But this way, Sweet Dream won't really think that you like her, right?" As Ziren spoke, he couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang. It wouldn't be good if there was a misunderstanding because of his prank. "You're thinking too much. Sweet Dream likes our master." Xiao He couldn't help but stand out. Following Xiao He's words, Di Baichen, Wen Ziren, and Shangguan Yingying's gazes all fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. They were all filled with disbelief. "Did I hear wrongly? Did you say that Sweet Dream likes Hongzhuang?" Wen Ziren was speechless. Xiao He nodded confidently. "You don't usually have much interaction with Sweet Dream. I've noticed that Sweet Dream blushes every time she talks to Master. What's more, Master's identity is no longer that of a pauper's from before. What's so impossible? Shangguan Yingying rubbed her head as she pondered. Hong Zhuang looks, it's not impossible for Sweet Dream to like him. Shangguan Yingying rubbed her head as she pondered. Thought. Ziren, don't worry. Sweet Dream won't think that I like her because I wrote your name at the bottom of the letter. Di Beichen spread out his hands. Ziren couldn't help but be stunned when he heard this. He immediately recalled that after he had finished writing the love letter, Di Beichen had taken it to have a look and even added 2 lines. He didn't look carefully at the contents of the love letter. Only now did he know that Di Beichen had signed his name. Beichen, you're too inhumane. Ziren couldn't help but complain. However, Di Beichen didn't have the slightest self-awareness of betraying his brother. I only have my wife in my heart. Even if I can get away with it, I can't give a love letter to someone else. If I make my wife unhappy, can you bear the responsibility? Then why didn't you think about it for me? Ziren's mouth twitched. Recently, he found that Di Beichen was becoming more and more of a beast. This love letter was written by you. Besides, didn't Yingying give you some advice? Di Beichen's voice was calm, and there wasn't the slightest bit of embarrassment on his face. Chapter 3089. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was full of smiles. Di Beichen had tricked Wen Ziren in this aspect. He really didn't have to pay for it. In fact, when Di Beichen had signed Wen Ziren's name, she had also noticed it. However, when she saw Ziren smiling so brightly, she didn't expose him. She wanted to see Wen Ziren's expression at the end. Now that she saw it, he was indeed very happy. Beichen, so you've successfully sent the healing medicine to Sweet Dream? Bailey Hongzhuang asked with a smile. Di Beichen nodded. I've already sent the healing medicine and the note. We have news to discuss with the higher-ups. I believe Sweet Dream won't ignore it. Then we'll just have to wait for the news, Bailey Hongzhuang replied. After Beichen's ruckus just now, no one doubts that we're number 18 anymore. We can breathe a sigh of relief for the time being. Ziren raised his eyebrows. Didn't you notice that the people at the door have gradually dispersed? They seem to have changed their target to the other side. Although there aren't many cultivators on the entire second floor, I'm afraid they don't have the ability to check one by one. These people are just here to try their luck. If they meet us, then they can make a fortune. As for the other experts who are really capable, they have no interest in wasting their time on us. Lu Mingxiu now hated Bailey Hongzhuang to the extreme. In recent days, whenever he appeared, he would inevitably be mocked. Although his status wasn't weak, and most people didn't dare to offend him, he had many enemies. Therefore, he took this opportunity to be ridiculed. When he thought of Bailey Hongzhuang, Lu Mingxiu was furious. If he suffered such a big loss like this, he really wouldn't be able to raise his head in front of those people in the future. Since you want to hide and don't want to reveal your true identity, then I'll go and investigate one by one. Let's see if you can continue to hide. There was a cold light in Lu Mingxiu's eyes. Last time, he had been one step behind, trying to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it. This time, he would directly expose Bailey Hongzhuang to the eyes of others. He didn't need to do anything to solve the problem. When Sweet Dream was selling the healing medicine, she found a note in her Cosmos sack. She opened it and immediately went to inform the higher-ups of the demon training tower. Compared to selling the healing medicine, this was the most important thing at the moment. The higher-ups of the demon training tower were obviously very interested in Bailey Hongzhuang. Now hearing that Bailey had taken the initiative to discuss a deal with them, they were immediately interested. Young Master D, Steward Qin invites you upstairs for a detailed discussion. All right. I'll go with you. Di Beichen followed closely. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Di Beichen and knew that Di Beichen was concerned about her, so she nodded. All right. Under Sweet Dream's lead, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen arrived at the room where they were invited. Although they had heard of the higher-ups of the demon training tower, they had never talked to them face to face. Sweet Dream was the one who had passed on the message. Young Master D, you guys sit here for a moment. I'll go inform Steward Qin. All right. Not long after Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen tasted their tea, Steward Qin walked into the room with a smile on his face. Young Master D, nice to meet you. Chapter 3090. I heard from Sweet Dream that the two of you have something to discuss with me? Steward Qin was about 40 years old. His square face was always filled with a friendly smile, but the shrewdness that occasionally flashed in his eyes made people understand his identity as a businessman. Di Beichen nodded slightly and said, Steward Qin should have some understanding of our situation these past 2 days. I wonder if young Master D is referring to the popularity of the healing medicine or something else. Steward Qin asked in confusion. Seeing that Steward Qin did not understand the situation, Di Beichen did not want to beat around the bush. He knew very well in his heart that Steward Qin had the upper hand in this negotiation, and the other party only wanted to see if they had enough chips. In the past 2 days, many people have started to inquire about our identities. Steward Qin should also understand that we only want to use this healing medicine to earn some spirit stones. We don't want to cause any trouble because of this. So it's about this matter. Steward Qin suddenly realized, I've heard a little about this matter. I wonder what your plans are now? Seeing that Steward Qin still did not let go, Di Beichen also cursed in his heart. The other party obviously did not want to let go of the eagle without seeing the rabbit, so all of this could only be brought up by them. With our current situation, it's not convenient for us to live on the second floor. I hope that Steward Qin can do us a favor and let us live in the alchemist and doctor's residential area. Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang's gazes fell on Steward Qin. They had already said so much, so Steward Qin could no longer continue to pretend. Young Master D, it's not that I don't want to help you, but this matter is really difficult to handle. Steward Qin rubbed his chin with his right hand, his face revealing a troubled expression. If it was only second young Master D living there alone, there would naturally be no problem. However, young Master D and your other 2 friends are not alchemists or doctors. If I agree to let you live there together, I'm afraid it will cause a lot of dissatisfaction. You should know that although I have a certain amount of weight in this demon training tower, there are still many things that need to be done according to the rules. Otherwise, if someone is not convinced, it will be a big problem for me. According to Steward Qin, this method won't work? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Steward Qin frowned. It's really difficult. Seeing this scene, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but secretly curse in her heart. Steward Qin only said that the matter was difficult to handle and didn't say that it couldn't be done. This meant that it could be done, but the specific way to do it would depend on the chips they took out. Steward Qin, if this continues, then I won't be able to continue selling this healing medicine. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. This is a huge loss. Steward Qin couldn't help but say. Steward Qin, why don't we still maintain the original sharing method? You will charge 40% of the processing fee. After that, no matter what the sales volume is, the sharing method will not change. How about you arrange for us to live upstairs? Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Steward Qin's eyes quietly flashed with a bright light, but the difficult expression on his face still did not dissipate. Chapter 3091. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen couldn't help but look at each other. They only felt that this Steward Qin was even more difficult to deal with than they had imagined. They had already taken out their chips, but this Steward Qin was still putting on airs and refused to give an answer. Obviously, he still wanted to see if they could offer a higher chip. This feeling of being controlled by the other party was very unpleasant. However, with their current situation, it would be best if they could go to the living area of the alchemists and doctors. Steward Qin, to be honest, as a doctor, I have a lot of things. This healing medicine is just one of the things that I have taken out. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly spoke, her gaze always falling on Steward Cheen. She could only release her chips one by one, and see when Steward Cheen would let go. Of course, if this Steward Cheen opened his mouth and offered conditions that she could not accept, she would not pay attention to it. If it really didn't work, they would just leave the demon training pagoda. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Steward Cheen's eyes lit up. In that case, second young Master D has a lot of skills? Can you still take out medicine with the same effect as the healing medicine? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Of course, there's no problem. It's just that I'm only selling the healing medicine in exchange for the spirit stones that we need for cultivation. There's no need to take out anything else. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang was so honest, Steward Cheen couldn't help but frown. Second young Master D, don't you plan to take advantage of this opportunity to earn more spirit stones? My focus is still on cultivation. Earning spirit stones is just a way for me to improve my cultivation. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was indifferent. Money was just a worldly possession. Her goal had never been to make money. What's more, I don't have much use for earning these spirit stones. If I can't even get what I want the most, what's the point? Bailey Hongzhuang sighed faintly. When she first came to the Penglai Island, she did want to earn more spirit stones in order to be able to buy the 2 medicinal herbs she needed at the auction. However, the news that Yi Li Fei told them later made her completely despair. Other than helping with cultivation, these spirit stones had no other use. A hint of curiosity appeared on Steward Cheen's face. Could it be that there's something that spirit stones can't exchange for? Our demon training pagoda's resources are also very rich. Why don't second young Master D tell us about it? As soon as he said that, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's eyes lit up. If the 3 forces of the Penglai Island, then the demon training pagoda was an existence that could not be ignored. Maybe with the help of the pagoda as a platform, they would have a chance to use it with the help of the pagoda with the help of the demon training pagoda's platform. Hongzhuang's tears and Hongzhuang's ginseng? A hint of surprise appeared on Steward Cheen's face. As far as I know, the usage rate of these 2 medicinal herbs is not high. Why are you collecting these 2 medicinal herbs? Chapter 3092. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had a faint feeling in their hearts that the tears of cold flame and the purple dragon emperor ginseng seemed to be something that the upper echelons of Penglai Island knew about. It could be seen from the surprised expression on Steward Cheen's face. However, they really didn't understand. They collected these 2 medicinal herbs to change Di Beichen's cursed body. Then why did the other party collect these 2 medicinal herbs? I'm researching a prescription and I just happen to need these 2 medicinal herbs. Bailey Hongzhuang said calmly. Di Beichen also said, my second brother has always liked to research new prescriptions, so the prescriptions he takes out are often different from those of ordinary doctors. Hearing this, Steward Cheen revealed a look of realization. So that's how it is. What I admire the most is a doctor like second young Master D, who likes to research new prescriptions. Unlike ordinary doctors, he doesn't have anything of his own. Previously, I was curious as to why the healing medicine made by second young Master D would have such an amazing effect. Now I finally understand. In that case, second young Master D should have a lot of effective prescriptions that he has mastered? Steward Cheen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang tentatively and asked. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. That's right. Young Masters D, since we've already said this much, how about we talk about a business deal? A serious expression appeared on Steward Cheen's face. He was no longer as cold and indifferent as before. He only listened to Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's conditions. Please speak, Steward Cheen. Di Beichen's expression remained the same, but in his heart, he secretly thought that this old fox had indeed begun to be tempted. We don't have the tears of cold flame in the blood refining tower, but we do have a purple dragon emperor ginseng in our inventory. Following Steward Cheen's words, Bailey Hongzhuang felt her heart thumping. She didn't expect that the blood-refining tower would really have it. However, both Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen controlled their emotions extremely well. In this negotiation, whoever appeared to be too anxious would have to pay more in the negotiation. As long as young Master D gives the prescription of this healing medicine to our demon training tower, I will give you this purple dragon emperor ginseng. How about it? Of course, while young Master D is in the demon training tower, you can still sell this healing medicine. Our demon training tower will not sell it. Our demon training tower will not sell it. We mainly sell it to other islands. Steward Qin's eyes were deep as he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. In addition, I can arrange for you to live in the medicine master and doctor's area. Cultivators will no longer be able to find out your identity, saving you a lot of trouble. Hearing Steward Qin's words, Bailey Master Stewards, from the very beginning, it's Steward Qin's, it's a medicines. From the start, it was better to teach a man to fish than to give him a fish. If she sold the healing medicine in the demon training tower, the demon training tower would only earn a small profit. However, once the prescription fell into the hands of the demon training tower, the situation would be completely different. The spirit stones they earned were definitely a huge number. Bailey Hongzhuang was very clear about the value of her healing medicine. A healing medicine that healed at a speed comparable to that of a healing pill was enough to attract everyone's attention. However, compared to the purple dragon emperor ginseng, this price was nothing. She didn't plan to make a fortune through this healing medicine. Chapter 3093. Although the value of the purple dragon emperor ginseng was very high, it was of no use in their hands. In his opinion, this purple dragon emperor ginseng was a very unpopular medicinal herb. Ordinary alchemists and doctors would not be able to use it at all. Coincidentally, Bailey Hongzhuang needed it, so it was not too much for him to use it as a bargaining chip. However, he did not know how much Bailey Hongzhuang valued this purple dragon emperor ginseng. If it was any other doctor, they would definitely not agree. However, he still wanted to try Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude. Just as Steward Qin was secretly thinking about the possibility of Bailey Hongzhuang agreeing, he had no idea that Bailey Hongzhuang was already crazy with joy in her heart. This deal was really worth it for Bailey Hongzhuang. Steward Qin, you should know that a doctor's prescription has always been very precious, not to mention that it was developed by my second brother himself. Di Beichen frowned, and a hint of hesitation appeared on his face. I know, but I want to arrange for you to live in a place that you can't live in. This can be considered breaking the rules of our demon training tower. This kind of thing is not something that I can decide on my own. If I don't take out something valuable, I'm afraid that everyone will not be convinced. The two of you should think about it carefully. Steward Qin sized up Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. He had already seen through Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's strength. Otherwise, he would not be so worried about other cultivators recognizing their identities. He believed that smart people would choose between a prescription and their own safety. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen pretended to hesitate. After thinking for a long time, they reluctantly nodded and agreed. All right, then let's do this. I hope that Steward Qin can immediately arrange for us to live there. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's answer, the smile on Steward Qin's face deepened. He immediately nodded and said, "No problem, I'll arrange it immediately." At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen couldn't help but look at each other. Their hearts were already blooming with joy. Today's negotiations were definitely worth more than what they had paid for. While Bailey Hongzhuang and Steward Qin were busy negotiating, when Ziren and Shangguan Yingying had worried expressions on their faces as they paced back and forth in the room like ants on a hot pan. "Isn't this Lu Mingxiu a little too weird? He's bent on finding us." Shangguan Yingying frowned. Just now, she noticed that there was a lot of movement outside, so she went to take a look. It turned out that Lu Mingxiu had ordered people to search room by room to find the existence of number 18. It wouldn't be long before they were found here. As long as they checked their plate number, they would immediately be able to determine their identity. This was simply too bad. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were not here. However, Shi and Xiren were number 19 and 20 respectively. Everyone could easily tell that they were the cultivators who came with Hongzhuang. This guy suffered a big loss last time. Now that he has such an opportunity, of course he wants to take advantage of it to take revenge. Xiren's face was gloomy. If it wasn't for his lack of strength, he really wanted to kill Lu Mingxiu. Those cultivators from before weren't very strong. Most of them came here to try their luck. However, no one on the second floor is a match for Lu Mingxiu. It'll be very difficult for us to resist him. Once we're discovered, there'll be endless trouble. Chapter 3094. Lu Mingxiu confirmed the identities of the cultivators one by one, and the smile on his face gradually widened. He had a premonition that they were not far from finding Bailey Hongzhuang. Now that more and more people had gathered on the second floor, he just stood there quietly and watched others check the number plate. Basically, all the cultivators living on the second floor did not dare to show any dissatisfaction after seeing him. They could only obediently take out their number plates for him to check. The other cultivators also knew about the grudge between Lu Mingxiu and number 18. Now that they had this opportunity, they were naturally overjoyed. Lu Mingxiu did not intend to personally attack number 18, which meant that they had a chance to make a fortune. Even though no one knew number 18's true identity, after number 18's performance these days, everyone vaguely concluded that number 18's cultivation was definitely not strong. Otherwise, she would not have been hiding like this. As time gradually passed, Shangguan Yingying and Wen Xiren became more and more worried. This was really bad. Now that the second floor was basically sealed off, the two of them could not leave even if they wanted to. At this moment, there was a knock on the door. Shangguan Yingying and Wen Xiren could not help but look at each other, and a trace of seriousness appeared on their faces. The other party had come looking for them. They slowly opened the door, but the person standing outside was not Lu Mingxiu and the others as they expected, but Sweet Dream. Miss Shangguan, young Master Wen, young Master Di and the others asked me to bring you to the alchemist and doctor area, Sweet Dream said with a faint smile. Shangguan Yingying and Wen Xiren, who were originally extremely nervous, could not help but breathe a sigh of relief, but the seriousness on their faces did not dissipate. Sweet Dream, there are people outside searching room by room. I'm afraid we will be stopped if we leave now, right? It's okay. Follow me through the staff passage at the back. We shouldn't be discovered. They will be here soon. Let's go quickly. Okay, let's go immediately. Wen Xiren and Wen Xiren looked back into the room. After seeing that there was nothing inside, the two of them immediately left with Sweet Dream. Not long after Wen Xiren and Lu Mingxiu left, Lu Mingxiu and the others arrived at their residence. Wen Xiren and Lu Mingxiu could not help but heave a sigh of relief when they saw this. It was truly too dangerous. However, Lu Mingxiu and the others were completely unaware that the person they were looking for had just left. After Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen completed the transaction with Steward Qin, they took the lead to go to the alchemist and doctor area. When they came up to take a look, the environment was indeed much better than the second floor. Every room was exceptionally spacious, and there was even a special place for doctors to make medicine. Compared to the second floor, it was no wonder that the second floor was called a slum. Not only that, there was no need to pay any fees to stay here, and most cultivators would not come to the residential area, which would save them a lot of trouble. Even if there were cultivators who came, most of them would also buy things at the counter. But disturbing alchemists and doctors, that was something that no one would rashly do. Steward Qin gave us 4 rooms, but with our situation, we only need 2 rooms. Chapter 3095. In Steward Qin's opinion, he has taken advantage of this negotiation. With his status as a high-ranking member of the Demon Training Pagoda, the value he has judged will not be wrong. Just your prescription for healing medicine is already extremely precious. As for this purple dragon emperor ginseng, it is very valuable to us, but I don't think it is of much value to him. Through this prescription, he can crazily amass wealth and exchange it for even more precious medicinal herbs. Even if he sells this prescription in the end, it will still be a profitable business for him. Di Baichen's deep eyes stared at Bailey Hongzhuang with a bit of guilt and heartache. Wife, for a purple dragon emperor ginseng, you sold your prescription. Without waiting for Di Baichen to finish speaking, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and said, It's just an ordinary prescription for healing medicine. It's nothing to me, so you don't have to worry about it. I have as many of these prescriptions as I want, so there's no need to feel sorry for them. Steward Qin feels that he has made a good deal, and I feel that our deal is the one that is really worth it. Di Baichen did not say anything, but his gaze quietly deepened. For his strange physique, Hong Zhuang had paid too much. Baichen, back then, when I was a useless young lady from Fengbo country, you supported me without any complaints or regret. Now that we are husband and wife, you and I should support each other, right? Bailey Hongzhuang tilted her head and stared at Di Baichen. Her beautiful eyes were brimming with a bright light, as dazzling as the Milky Way. The sincerity and deep affection in her eyes moved Di Baichen's heart. The smile on Di Baichen's lips gradually widened, and the deep affection in his eyes became more and more indulgent. A deep kiss directly landed on Bailey Hongzhuang's lip. With a wife like this, what more could a husband ask for? He only hoped that his physique could successfully change. He would use the rest of his life to treat Hongzhuang well. Bailey Hongzhuang blushed. Just as Baichen wanted to give her all the good things, she had the same idea. As long as it was for the other party, any price was worth it. Not to mention an ordinary prescription, as long as it could be exchanged for the medicinal herbs they needed, no matter how precious the prescription was, she wouldn't mind at all. The amethyst dragon emperor ginseng is already in our hand. All that's left is the tears of frostfire. The light in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes grew brighter and brighter. Baichen, I think we will definitely be able to gather all these herbs. Originally, after hearing some news from Yi Li Fei, she had felt very desperate. She had never thought that there would be such a pleasant surprise today, which could not help but rekindle her hope. Di Baichen nodded heavily and said in a deep and firm voice, We will definitely find them. No matter what, he would never leave Hongzhuang. The position of the demon training pagoda in Penglai Island cannot be underestimated. If the healing medicine that Steward Qin sent people to make sells well on Penglai Island, maybe we can use the demon training pagoda as a channel to find the tears of frostfire. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Compared to the few of them searching alone, the success rate of the demon training pagoda's help was much higher. I don't know what kind of power took away the tears of frostfire. According to Steward Qin's performance today, I think he should know. Chapter 3096. You mean to say that Steward Qin is the breakthrough point? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. Why don't we start with Steward Qin and ask him why he collected these two medicinal ingredients? If we can think of a way to exchange for a set of tears of cold flame from him, that would be the best. Di Baichen thought for a moment, then shook his head and said, Now is not the time. The other party is obviously not a small power. Today, when Steward Qin thought of the other party, I noticed a flash of fear on his face. Steward Qin is indeed a breakthrough point, but with our current situation, it is not enough to meet the conditions for negotiation. Right now, we are not in a hurry to talk about this matter. We will talk about it after we have more chip. If we appear to be in a hurry, it will give Steward Qin an opportunity to take advantage of us. Hearing Di Baichen's words, Bailey Hongzhuang also calmed down. You're right. Steward Qin was obviously an old fox. Once they acted too anxious, he would definitely raise the price. He might even want to take advantage of this opportunity to take advantage of them. With their current situation, Negotiating with a large power like the other party was like walking on thin ice. Before they had enough chips, they could only endure and not make a move. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were talking, there was a knock on the door. When he opened the door, he saw Sweet Dream, Shangguan Ying, and Wen Xiren standing outside their door. "Young Master D, I've already brought Miss Shangguan and the others here. I'll be going back first," Shangguan Ying said with a smile. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly and said, "Thank you, I've really troubled you today. Young Master D is too polite. It's all thanks to young Master D that I've improved so much in the Demon Training Tower. If there's anything you need my help with in the future, just ask." Sweet Dream smiled, her cheeks still flushed red. Now that she saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had completely escaped from her previous predicament, her good impression of him continued to deepen. Xiren and Shangguan Ying noticed the change in Sweet Dream's expression, and their expressions became strange. Previously, they thought that Xiao He was talking nonsense, but they clearly noticed that Sweet Dream blushed when she was talking to Bailey Hongzhuang. She blushed. Sweet Dream was not shy when talking to all of them. She was only shy when talking to Bailey Hongzhuang. This was a little too unusual. "Hongzhuang, you're finished. I'm afraid Sweet Dream has really fallen for you." Shangguan Ying looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment. Obviously, she was also extremely surprised by this discovery. Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly stunned. She looked at Shangguan Ying in surprise and said, "Ying, are you sure? What nonsense are you talking about?" "Ying, what nonsense are you talking about?" Xiao He also jumped out and said. Xiren stared at Bailey Hongzhuang, as if he wanted to see something from Bailey Hongzhuang's face. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but take 2 steps back and said, "What are you doing?" When Xiren rubbed his chin, his eyes filled with doubt and confusion. "No matter how I look at it, your face doesn't seem to be any more handsome than mine. Could it be that my manly charm isn't as good as yours when you're disguised as a man? What kind of taste does Sweet Dream have?" Chapter 3097. No matter how you look at it, our master is more charming than you. What's more, my master is a doctor. Xiao He raised an eyebrow and jumped happily on Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder. She didn't believe it at all when she said this before, but now there was finally someone who thought the same as her. Hearing this, Xiren nodded. "That's true. Compared to Hongzhuang's wealthy identity, Beichen and I really don't have much competition." "What are you talking about? In my opinion, you're just overthinking it." Bailey Hongzhuang's face showed helplessness. She didn't have such a good sense of superiority. There were so many excellent people on this demon refining island. It would be strange if she, a woman dressed as a man, had such charm. Shangguan Ying shook her head. "Hongzhuang, with my woman's sharp intuition, I can guarantee that I'm not wrong." In the next second, Shangguan Ying's eyes suddenly lit up. "However, I think that this is a good thing. Sweet Dream likes you, so she'll definitely pay more attention to our matters in the future. This is simply too perfect." "Haha, Ying, that's a good idea." Xiren gave Shangguan Ying a thumbs up. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but look back at Di Beichen with a questioning look in her clear eyes. Di Beichen crossed his arms and slowly nodded under Bailey Hongzhuang's surprised gaze. "This possibility isn't impossible." "Oh right, Beichen, Hongzhuang, I have something to tell you." After joking around, Xiren finally remembered the serious matter, and a serious look quickly appeared on his face. "Previously, when you went to discuss matters, Lu Mingxiu came to the 2nd floor and checked the cultivator's number plate one by one. His goal was to find us. If Sweet Dream hadn't arrived early and took us out of the staff passageway, then we would have fallen into Lu Mingxiu's hands." Shangguan Ying nodded repeatedly. "We were almost worried to death just now. The number of cultivators was simply shocking. Fortunately, you were fast enough. Otherwise, we would have been finished." Even if she said it now, Shangguan Ying still had some lingering fear. It was simply a matter of life and death. If they had been just a little bit later, they would have been stopped. Lu Mingxiu went looking for trouble again? Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. She had always felt that Lu Mingxiu was a big trouble. It had only been a short while, but Lu Mingxiu could not help but come looking for trouble again. Lu Mingxiu wants to find us and use others to capture us all in one fell swoop. This guy is really ruthless. Speaking of which, from the beginning to the end, he was the one looking for trouble with us. We didn't do anything at all, Ziren said coldly. When he thought about how there was no enmity between them, but Lu Mingxiu wanted to take their lives as soon as he came, he felt a chill in his heart. It's very simple. It's nothing more than that he couldn't deal with Xiaoyihan, so he transferred this conflict to us. He wants to vent his anger through us. Di Beichen's voice was slightly cold, but his face was very calm. Those who did not have the ability often could only show their strength by bullying the weak. If they were strong, then there was no need for this. Chapter 3098. As Di Beichen's voice fell, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two nodded in agreement. This was indeed the case. Speaking of which, Lu Mingxiu definitely won't be able to find us today. Wouldn't that make him even angrier? Shangguan Yingying pondered. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other, their eyes big and small, their hearts somewhat speechless. I'm afraid that after today, Lu Mingxiu will hate us even more. Speaking of which, this is completely an undeserved disaster. If he didn't want to do these useless things, he wouldn't have slapped his face so hard. If I'm not wrong, Lu Mingxiu will become a joke again if today's matter is spread out. Bailey Hongzhuang spread out her hands. Her face was full of helplessness. There were always some ignorant people who lifted a stone and dropped it on their own feet. This kind of thing really couldn't be blamed on them. Haha, I'm suddenly looking forward to Lu Mingxiu's expression when he can't find us after searching all the rooms on the second floor. Ziren suddenly couldn't help but laugh. This guy always thought of ways to find trouble with them. He deserved this kind of result. Let's wait. It should be very exciting. Di Beichen nodded. In fact, everything was as Bailey Hongzhuang and the others expected. As Lu Mingxiu searched more and more rooms, his face became uglier and uglier. He had checked almost all the rooms on the second floor. He faintly had a bad premonition in his heart. If he didn't get any results after checking all the rooms today, it would be a little ugly. However, the cultivators behind Lu Mingxiu didn't notice this at all. They only became more and more excited as the remaining rooms became fewer and fewer. They were almost certain that they would find the real target next. At that time, they would have to act before others did. Then, tens of thousands of spirit stones would fall into their hands. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the others stayed in the alchemist and doctor area, they continued to make healing medicine. There were a lot of orders for healing medicine, and they still had a lot to make. Now that they came to live here, they completely put down their burdens and didn't have to worry about safety. They could complete the orders with peace of mind. The next day, after Bailey Hongzhuang and the others handed the healing medicine to the counter for sale, they heard the news from Lu Mingxiu. Yesterday, Lu Mingxiu led a large group of cultivators to search the entire second floor. They didn't miss a single room, but they didn't find the figure of number 18 at all. Everyone guessed that number 18 might not be on the second floor for a long time. But Lu Mingxiu, who had a noble identity, made such a big fanfare to look for her, in the end to find her. And they thought Lu Mingxiu's face. Is she to find? He 222 222 to be her. Chapter 3099. After this incident, the position of number 18 on the second floor quietly rose in everyone's hearts. Unknowingly, everyone had already regarded number 18 on the second floor as an existence on the same level as Lu Mingxiu and Xiaoyihan. Only this kind of existence could make Lu Mingxiu miss time and time again. If it was just an ordinary cultivator, there was no way they could compete with Lu Mingxiu. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others knew what the people of the Demon Training Tower were thinking, the four of them couldn't help but laugh in the room. The people of the Demon Training Tower are really imaginative. In such a short period of time, they've already established a mysterious and mighty image for Hong Zhuang. Shangguan Yingying laughed loudly. They originally didn't have enough strength and could only hide from everyone. They didn't expect that they would quietly establish such an image, and instead become infinitely mighty. This is also good. I'm afraid that no one will dare to cause trouble for Hong Zhuang now. Di Beichen's lips curled into a faint smile. They just didn't show up, and they already gave the other party a show of strength. Now, the cultivators gathered on the second floor who wanted to try their luck had all dispersed. Clearly, they regarded Bailey Hong Zhuang as an existence that couldn't be provoked. Bailey Hong Zhuang smiled slightly. After today's batch of healing medicine is completed, we can go into seclusion with peace of mind. The sales of the healing medicine were far better than Sweet Dream had imagined. She originally thought that after a few days of popularity, the hot sales would die down. However, reality proved that Bailey Hong Zhuang's healing medicine was very attractive. Although it wasn't as hot as before, the sales were still extremely terrifying. Clearly, these people were all returning customers and were completely here for the effects of the healing medicine. Bailey Hong Zhuang's group of four could be said to be extremely fast at making healing medicine. In just a few days, they had already stocked up a lot of healing medicine. It should be enough to support the sales for a period of time without any problems. Take advantage of this opportunity to raise our cultivation as soon as possible. When Xiren's eyes lit up as he said, Lu Mingxiu has been finding trouble for us. I hope that we can also find trouble for him one day. It's not like me to swallow my anger. Bailey Hong Zhuang's lips curled up slightly. Just as Xiren had said, Lu Mingxiu's successive actions had already caused her displeasure. If she did not return all of this to Lu Mingxiu, it would not be in line with her style. Sweet Dream looked at the healing medicine that Bailey Hong Zhuang handed over, and a look of surprise appeared in her eyes. Young Master D, I haven't sold out the healing medicine you gave me previously. Bailey Hong Zhuang waved her hand and said, Sweet Dream, I plan to cultivate in seclusion for a period of time, so I'll give you these healing medicines first. If you want to contact me, you can put a note in the door. I'll come and find you when I see it. Hearing this, Sweet Dream finally understood. I understand. Don't worry, I'll definitely let you know if there's anything. Sorry to trouble you. After everything was arranged, Bailey Hong Zhuang's group of four entered the ocean world together and began to cultivate. Taking advantage of this opportunity to break through to the fourth level of the Purple Realm in one fell swoop was their goal. There were as many monsters in the ocean world as usual, and every time they appeared, they would be ganged up on. Bailey Hong Zhuang's group of four was extremely small in this vast sea, but it was unusually stable. Chapter 3100. Cultivation in the ocean world was extremely arduous. Bailey Hong Zhuang and the other three might not have been familiar with battles on the surface of the sea, but after cultivating in the ocean world, they were all too familiar with the sea and no longer felt as fearful as before. Even when Xiren, who had been in the water for the shortest amount of time, felt at ease when facing the sea. However, they did not dare to enter the sea carelessly because the seemingly calm surface of the sea was filled with danger everywhere. If they were not careful, they would not lose their lives. Unknowingly, Bailey Hong Zhuang and the other three used healing medicine at an extremely high frequency. Almost every battle caused them to be unavoidably injured, and the successive battles caused them to frequently fall into danger. However, in this process, their combat power and endurance were constantly improving. Every dangerous situation they faced was a catalyst for their improvement. Almost everyone had different injuries on their bodies. The three beasts situation was not much better than theirs. Originally, the three beasts were also landlubbers. However, they were already familiar with the water. What made Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest feel helpless was that the three beasts had already broken through before they had succeeded in breaking through. Xiao He and Xiao Bai's breakthroughs were one thing. They had not improved for a while, but Bai Shi had broken through again. All of this was due to the demonic beasts in the sea who liked to attack in group. Every time these demonic beasts appeared, their numbers were extremely large. Once they started fighting, the battle would not stop unless all of them were killed. As a result, all the demon crystals had entered Bai Shi's stomach. In addition to Bai Shi's abnormal attributes, he had broken through again. Now, Bai Shi was the most powerful in their entire team. This made everyone feel that they were inferior to beasts. They had worked hard to cultivate, but they could only watch as the white lion improved again and again. This is simply heaven-defying. When Ziren looked speechlessly at Bai Shi, who was still eating happily. This fellow's mouth had not stopped. How good would it be if he could also improve his cultivation so easily? I'm so envious of Bai Shi. This cultivation speed is simply unparalleled. Shangguan Yingying could not hide the envy on her face. Bai Shi looked proudly at Ziren and Wenxinya. The sound of him eating the demon crystals became even clearer. You can't be envious. However, just as they were talking, Di Beichen's eyes suddenly changed. He put a finger on his lips and said, Hongzhuang seems to be breaking through. As soon as this was said, when Ziren and Shangguan Yingying both looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Sure enough, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were closed, and the aura in her body began to fluctuate faintly. I'm afraid it's very dangerous to break through here. When Ziren's expression turned serious, they could be attacked by demonic beasts at any time on the sea. If Bailey Hongzhuang was disturbed while she was breaking through, it would be terrible. Di Beichen's expression was equally serious. It's best to go back and break through. Otherwise, we can only think of a way to protect Hongzhuang from being affected. Just then, Bailey Hongzhuang opened her eyes. Her brows were tightly knitted and her expression showed that she was in pain. Based on the time, we should be going back soon. Chapter 3101. Forcefully suppressing the opportunity to break through was not an easy task in itself. It could not be maintained for a long time. Once the time limit was exceeded, this opportunity would be completely missed. It would be even more difficult to obtain this opportunity the next time. Di Beichen nodded and looked at the sky. It should be soon. If it doesn't work, we will protect you. You don't have to worry. The three beasties looked at Bailey Hongzhuang anxiously. It was not easy to obtain such an opportunity to break through, but it had to be at such an awkward time. They were really helpless. Cold sweat seeped out of Bailey Hongzhuang's forehead. She could feel the surging elemental energy in her dantian. It was constantly churning, trying to break through the bottleneck. The seven-colored, glittering elemental energy was magnificent. It made Bailey Hongzhuang's dantian look like a galaxy, magnificent and perfect. Di Beichen had been paying attention to Bailey Hongzhuang's condition. After discovering that Bailey Hongzhuang's breath was becoming more and more unstable, he could not help but say, "Wife, don't suppress it anymore. Just break through directly. It would be a pity if you missed this opportunity." Bailey Hongzhuang stared at Di Beichen and gritted her teeth. "How much longer?" "1 minute." Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but close her eyes. She was trying her best to suppress it. It was best to break through in a safe environment. Not only that, suppressing it for a certain period of time would not cause any harm. On the contrary, it would make her foundation more stable. However, it depended on the person's ability to control this degree. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to be unable to hold on, a large door appeared in front of them and directly brought them out of the ocean world. Once they returned to the doctor's residence, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately began to break through. After she stopped suppressing it, the elemental energy in her body surged wildly like a flood. The fiercer she suppressed it before, the more intense it was now. Bailey Hongzhuang clenched her teeth. She held the spirit stone with both hands and continuously operated the heaven-defying heart technique. The originally intense pain gradually stabilized as she operated the heaven-defying heart technique. She focused her mind and controlled the elemental energy to rush in one direction. Di Beichen and the other two sighed in relief after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's condition gradually stabilizing. They were worried that the previous suppression would have a negative impact on Bailey Hongzhuang. Now it seemed that Bailey Hongzhuang was really a lucky person. I didn't expect Hongzhuang to be the first to break through among us. Her speed is unbelievable. Shangguan Yingying's eyes were full of amazement. She thought that when Ziren and Di Beichen would be the first to break through. She did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to give her a surprise. Di Beichen, we have to work harder. If we are left behind by Hongzhuang in the future, it will be very embarrassing. When Ziren smiled faintly, Di Beichen's deep eyes rippled with a faint smile. He did not answer, but his heart was somewhat heavy. As the influence of this cursed body gradually increased, he found that his cultivation was suppressed. If it was in the past, he would have broken through long ago. But now it was extremely difficult to break through the bottleneck. This feeling was completely different from before. If he was not willing to believe that the cursed body could be so powerful before, now he had no choice but to face it. Chapter 3102. This kind of feeling was really uncomfortable. However, Di Beichen never said this out loud, because if he did, it would definitely make Ziren and the others even more worried. Thinking back, he had also fallen from the top of the divine altar, and then climbed back to the peak. This kind of feeling was not so unbearable for him. At this time, Shangguan Yingying could not help but see two pieces of paper on the ground by the door. She immediately picked up the paper and said, "This should be the note that Sweet Dream left for us. Could it be that the healing medicine has been sold out? We stayed in the ocean world for quite a long time this time, so it's only natural that the healing medicine has been sold out." Di Beichen took the note from Shangguan Yingying's hand and opened it to take a look. However, after reading it, Di Beichen could not help but frown, because there were only 3 words written on the note. "There's trouble." He picked up the other note and opened it to take a look. There were 6 words written on the note. "There's trouble, contact me quickly." It seems that there's trouble again. Di Beichen's eyes were deep and cold, and his voice was slightly cold. Hearing Di Beichen's words, when Ziren and Shangguan Yingying could not help but be startled, and a hint of surprise appeared on their faces. "Trouble? We're already living here. What trouble could there be?" Shangguan Yingying did not understand. When Ziren's eyebrows slightly raised, his face full of thought, could it be that Lu Mingxiu is looking for trouble again? From the beginning to the end, they had only offended one person in the demon training tower, and that was Lu Mingxiu. Other than him, they could not think of anyone else. "It's possible." Di Beichen nodded. "Last time, Lu Mingxiu lost face again, so it's normal that he doesn't want to let it go." "Then what should we do now?" Shangguan Yingying revealed a troubled expression. "Hongzhuang is currently breaking through. Why don't we contact Sweet Dream and ask?" Di Beichen and Wen Ziren looked at each other and nodded at the same time. "Let's go and understand the situation first. I'm sure Sweet Dream is very anxious right now." Di Beichen went to look for Sweet Dream. When Sweet Dream saw Di Beichen and the others, she was pleasantly surprised. However, when she didn't see Bailey Hongzhuang, a hint of disappointment appeared in her eyes. "Tianmeng, what happened these days?" Di Beichen took the lead to ask. Sweet Dream looked around and said, "If you don't mind, I'll go to your place to talk." Seeing this, Di Beichen and the other two nodded. "Okay." After entering the room, Di Beichen said, "Can you tell me now? What happened? Why isn't second young Master Di here?" Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang was not in the room, Sweet Dream could not help but ask. "She's currently breaking through, so she can't come out to understand the situation for now. Once she's done, we'll inform her." After saying this, when Ziren and Shangguan Yingying looked at each other, It seemed that their guess was right. Sweet Dream liked Bailey Hongzhuang, otherwise she wouldn't pay so much attention to Bailey Hongzhuang's situation. Hearing this, Sweet Dream finally relaxed, but her expression also became a bit unsightly. This matter is indeed a bit troublesome. Did Lu Mingxiu come looking for trouble again? Ziren asked. Chapter 3103. Hearing this, Di Beichen and the other two couldn't help but feel even more confused. They didn't know what other enemy they had besides Lu Mingxiu. It's like this. Sweet Dream slowly explained what had happened. It turned out that ever since Bailey Hongzhuang's healing medicine began to be sold, the other medicine refiners and doctors in the magic training tower were affected. In the first few days, the medicine refiners and doctors only thought that it was a novelty. After all, every time a new item came out of the magic training tower, it would cause a wave of excitement. Thus, they didn't take it to heart. They only wanted to wait for this wave of excitement to pass before everything returned to normal. However, the situation was completely different from what they thought. Although Bailey Hongzhuang's healing medicine wasn't as popular as before, there was an endless stream of cultivators who wanted to buy it. In addition, Bailey Hongzhuang had given Sweet Dream a sufficient supply, so Sweet Dream didn't think about this. In a short period of time, Bailey Hongzhuang's healing medicine became a monopoly in the magic training tower. Almost all the cultivators came to buy this healing medicine. Only a very small number of people would buy other healing pills or medicine. This scene clearly exceeded everyone's expectations. In the magic training tower, the medicine that sold the most and consumed the most was healing medicine. Thus, almost all the medicine refiners and doctors couldn't give up on this area. Once Bailey Hongzhuang's healing medicine was released, it affected the profits of the other medicine refiners and doctors. Thus, everyone couldn't help but protest. If it was a normal problem, it wouldn't be a problem for Sweet Dream to deal with. However, these medicine refiners and doctors weren't people that she could easily offend. With the other side pressuring her like this, Sweet Dream couldn't do anything. Thus, she could only quickly notify Bailey Hongzhuang. Recently, these medicine refiners and doctors have been causing more and more trouble. They're asking young Master D to either stop selling this healing medicine or get the hell out of the magic training tower. Sweet Dream furrowed her brows, her pretty face filled with embarrassment. You don't know how difficult it is to deal with these arrogant fellows. Besides, these people usually have a lot of charisma. I really don't know what to do. After hearing all this, Shangguan Ying's expression turned ugly. These guys clearly don't have the ability to fight against Di Bei. They actually shamelessly found such an excuse to protest. Don't they feel embarrassed? Di Beichen and Wen Ziren were also speechless. They didn't know that the medicine they sold would have such a huge impact on the alchemists and doctors of the magic training tower. Fortunately, Hongzhuang had only sold one type of healing medicine. If Hongzhuang had sold more things, then wouldn't all the alchemists and doctors in the Devil Training Tower have nothing to eat? I also know that this matter is their fault, but once they join forces, they will be a very powerful force. Sweet Dream was very helpless. Normally, they had to be careful not to offend just one alchemist or doctor, let alone now that so many people had joined together to protest, she had no way of doing anything. Chapter 3104. The higher-ups of the Demon Training Tower have no opinion on this matter? Di Beichen pursed his lips, a sharp light hidden in his eyes. Logically speaking, this kind of matter should be handled by the higher-ups of the Demon Training Tower. An ordinary counter lady wouldn't be able to handle it, but as long as the higher-ups of the Demon Training Tower stood up and said something, this kind of protest would be quelled. The most important thing was that they had never made a mistake in this matter from the beginning to the end. It could only be said that those pharmacists and doctors were narrow-minded. They didn't have the ability, so they wanted to use this kind of method to drive away the strong competitors. Hearing Di Beichen's words, Sweet Dream's expression became even more awkward. I've already reported this matter to the higher-ups, but they haven't responded. Clearly, they want you to deal with this matter on your own. The higher-ups of the demon training tower are all sly old foxes. They don't want to offend anyone, so they simply don't stand up. Like this, aren't they forcing us to make a decision? Bachan's expression was unfathomable. His black whirlpool-like eyes narrowed slightly, faintly emitting a cold light. When Ziren and Shangguan Yingying's expressions also became unsightly. Compared to Lu Mingxiu, these alchemists and doctors who had joined forces were indeed a bigger problem. This was simply an unsolvable situation. Asking them to stop selling healing medicine was something they simply couldn't swallow. As for leaving the demon training tower, that was even more impossible. However, it wasn't easy to make these fellows shut their mouth. Have those fellows made any specific moves? Bachan asked. Sweet Dream shook her head. They haven't made any specific moves, but they've jointly protested and stopped me from continuing to sell healing medicine. Right now, there's no way to continue selling it. So, they haven't caused any trouble these past 2 days. Sweet Dream nodded. No, I said you were in secluded cultivation, but they seemed to think I was lying. You were just afraid of their joint protest, so you hid your heads like turtles. In these past few days, those pharmacists and doctors had been extremely arrogant. Sweet Dream didn't say this out loud. If we stop selling healing medicine, then it's their medicine that's being sold now? Shangguan Yingying wasn't angry. Instead, she laughed, her voice filled with ridicule. Indeed, forget it. Since things have become like this, we don't have to worry for now. Let's wait until Bei succeeds in his breakthrough before we make any plans. When Ziren thought about it and said, to deal with the pharmacists and doctors. Obviously, Bailey Hongzhuang as well as the pharmacists and doctors. Sweet Dream nodded. Then I'll go back. Okay. Sweet Dream of Dream, Shangguan Yingying and Shangguan Yingying. Of course, Hong Yingying. Yingying didn't. Except Hong. Of course. To say, to them. Of them to them of. Chapter 3105. Hearing Bachan's words, when Ziren and Shangguan Yingying's expressions changed. It seemed that Bachan was preparing to cause trouble. However, they liked it. Number 18's healing medicine had stopped being sold. This undoubtedly caused a big impact in the demon training tower. However, the source of this matter was quickly known by everyone. Number 18 is really unlucky. She's just selling a healing medicine, and all the alchemists and doctors have joined forces to protest. They're trying to push her out completely. These alchemists and doctors have always been like this. As long as someone's performance is outstanding, they will start to ban them. To be honest, it's really disgusting. That's true. The healing medicine sold by number 18 is comparable to healing pills. It's the most cost-effective to buy. That's why these guys can't stand it anymore. That can't be helped. Now that so many people are collectively pressuring her, these people are much harder to deal with than Lu Mingxiu. Now that the healing medicine has stopped being sold, it will be very difficult to buy it in the future. Everyone was discussing and sighing about the development of this matter. The most helpless thing was the loss they had suffered. Bachan and the others walked around the arena area and heard this kind of discussion the most. Obviously, most of the cultivators were unwilling to stop the sale of healing medicine. This made them feel a little better. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang completed her breakthrough and successfully broke through from the 3rd level of the Purple Realm to the 4th level of the Purple Realm. Feeling the abundant energy in her body, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but smile with satisfaction. It had been 3 months since she came to Penglai Island. Finally, there was some improvement. According to the judgment of ordinary people, this kind of cultivation speed was already very fast. However, it was far from enough for them. However, this was also because they had wasted a lot of time before. Now that they had enough spirit stones, as long as they focused on cultivation, the speed of their cultivation would increase again. However, when Bailey Hongzhuang opened her eyes, she found that she was alone in the room. Di Beichen, Wen Ziren, and Shangguan Yingying were not there. This made her frown. Where did they go? The three beasts immediately gathered in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and said, "Master, there's trouble again." Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes suddenly sank. What happened? The three beasties immediately relayed everything Sweet Dream had said to Bailey Hongzhuang. These fellows from the Demon Training Tower are truly shameless. After Bailey Hongzhuang heard all this, her expression changed slightly, but her expression remained calm. I didn't know that selling a healing medicine would cause such a huge impact. These guys are too impatient. Di Beichen and the others have gone to the arena to understand the situation. They should be back soon. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasties were talking, familiar footsteps sounded outside the door. Then, Di Beichen and the other two figures appeared in Bailey Hongzhuang's line of sight. "Wife, you've completed your breakthrough." Di Beichen's eyes flashed with joy as he said with a smile. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "I've heard about the joint protest from Xiao He and the others. Did you guys get any news when you went out?" Chapter 3106. Most of the cultivators still hope that this healing medicine can continue to be sold. However, everyone has already decided that it's impossible for us to make a comeback. When Ziren spread his hands and said helplessly. Shangguan Yingying nodded. "It's too difficult for us to gain the upper hand in this battle. Wife, what do you plan to do?" Di Beichen sat down next to Bailey Hongzhuang. Usually, when faced with a situation like this, neither he nor Hongzhuang would sit and wait for death. "They want to ban the sale of my healing medicine for their own benefit. That's impossible." Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were cold and her lips curled into a mocking smile. Her original intention was to earn some money through this healing medicine. Now that she has earned quite a bit, she only wanted to focus on her cultivation. However, these people just had to cause trouble. She did not mind stopping the sale, but the other party had used such despicable means to ban her from selling. She could not take this lying down. Since that's the case, let's spread the news that the healing medicine will continue to be sold. How about it? Di Beichen curled his rosy lips and his eyes were filled with interest. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded gently and the smile on her lips widened. It seems that Di Beichen had the same idea as her. She could not take this lying down. "All right, I'd like to see what these people can do to me if I continue to sell it. However, if we continue to sell it, those people will definitely not stop. I'm afraid that they'll come looking for trouble." Di Beichen reminded Bailey Hongzhuang. These people who were in high positions and used their power to bully others liked to cause trouble endlessly. Once they started to fight back, the other party would definitely take action immediately. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged nonchalantly. If the other party was a powerful cultivator, we might not be able to do anything. However, when it comes to alchemy and medical skills, I'm not afraid of anyone. Just a portion of healing medicine that I casually took out was enough to force them into such a situation. It's obvious that their powers are not that great. The other party had slapped her in the face so arrogantly. If she didn't return the favor, how would that be her style? Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, when Ziren and Shangguan Yingying's faces lit up with interest. It seemed like there was going to be a good show to watch. After making up her mind, Bailey Hongzhuang went to look for Sweet Dream. When Sweet Dream learned that Bailey Hongzhuang was going to continue to sell healing medicine and did not intend to pay attention to these people's joint protests, she could not help but be stunned. "Young Master D, this will definitely arouse the dissatisfaction of all of them. This is a huge problem." Sweet Dream looked at Bailey Hongzhuang worriedly. With so many people working together, it could be said that they had the advantage in numbers. Bailey Hongzhuang was alone, and it would not be easy for her to fight against the other party. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. "They took advantage of the fact that I was in closed-door cultivation to do such a thing. I'd like to see what they can do if I continue to sell it." If they have the ability, they can make healing medicine that's more effective than my healing medicine. If there's only one thing that's more effective than what they've refined, they'll join forces to suppress it. That would be too laughable. Young Master D, have you really decided? It's very likely to be a storm. Chapter 3107. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang had made up her mind, Sweet Dream knew that it was useless to stop her. She nodded. I will spread the news. However, young Master D, I have something to remind you of. These alchemists and doctors know where you live because the rules here are different from other residential areas. Every time a new person arrives, the other alchemists and doctors will receive the news. Once I spread the news that you are going to continue selling healing medicine, I'm afraid that they will come to find trouble with you very soon. You have to be mentally prepared. However, I feel that you will not be able to avoid being at a disadvantage if you compete with so many of them. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with astonishment. She did not know about this. Fortunately, Sweet Dream had reminded her. However, even so, this would not change her decision. I understand. You just have to continue spreading the news. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Sweet Dream looked at the confident smile on Bailey Hongzhuang's face and her heart skipped a beat. It had to be said that compared to enduring like this, Bailey Hongzhuang was much more domineering. She did not know how Bailey Hongzhuang planned to deal with this storm. However, looking at Bailey Hongzhuang like this, she could not help but be moved. On the same day, a piece of news shook the demon training tower. Have you heard? Number 18 is going to continue selling healing medicine. This is equivalent to directly challenging so many alchemists and doctors. Didn't she stop selling before? Why did she suddenly change her attitude? I heard that she was in closed-door cultivation before and did not know what was happening outside. Now that she has come out, she is going to continue selling. That means that number 18 is not an ordinary person. It's fine if Lu Mingshu can't do anything to her. Now that she is facing an alliance of alchemists and doctors, she is not afraid at all. She is a real man. Haha, I admire her more and more. Just based on her courage, I will buy a few more portions of her healing medicine today. Bailey Hongzhuang's uncompromising attitude attracted the favor of many cultivators. As cultivators, not giving in was their nature. However, when faced with alchemists and doctors, they could only swallow their anger. Now that they saw Bailey Hongzhuang taking the initiative to stand up, they could not help but admire her. Moreover, as long as Bailey Hongzhuang continued selling, they would be able to buy the most cost-effective healing medicine for them. This was undoubtedly the best. Just as the cultivators were praising Bailey Hongzhuang, the alchemists and doctors who were jointly protesting. Number 18 is too arrogant. Does she think that she can fight against all of us with just her strength alone? That's too funny. She is really a newborn calf that is not afraid of the tiger. She thinks that she is so great just because she has a good healing medicine. She actually dared to do such a thing. If we don't teach her a lesson, wouldn't it weaken our reputation? Chapter 3108. All of the alchemists and doctors gathered together, their faces filled with indignation. Although they usually made their own things, they had already formed a certain rule between them. Once a cultivator appeared who didn't cooperate with them, they would suppress them immediately until the other party finally submitted to them. Correspondingly, they would also give the other party some opportunities to develop. For so long, they had maintained this tradition and would never allow anyone to break it. Originally, when Bailey Hongzhuang stopped selling her healing pills, they thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was a tactful person who knew that offending them was the most unwise move. They didn't expect that they had overestimated Bailey Hongzhuang. The latter clearly didn't have such wisdom. Elder Chu, you are the most prestigious person among all of us. You have to take the lead in this matter. I believe that as soon as you appear, number 18 will immediately disarm and surrender, Elder Chu said with a smile. At this time, an alchemist took the lead and suggested, "That's right, Elder Chu. You've been in the Devil Training Tower the longest and your influence is also the greatest. The healing pills you refine have always been known to have the best effects, but now there are actually many cultivators saying that the effects of your healing pills are inferior to the healing pills made by number 18. This is like slapping your face. It's fine if our healing pills are inferior to hers, but we all know that Elder Chu's healing pills are very effective. We will never admit this." Everyone spoke out one after another and looked at an old man who was about 60 years old. He was the most famous person among them and had a very close relationship with the upper echelons of the Demon Training Tower. As long as he stood out to protest, they believed that the upper echelons of the Demon Training Tower would have no choice but to agree. After hearing everyone's words, Chu Feihu's face turned gloomy. "They are saying that my healing pills are inferior to number 18's healing pills? Right now, almost all of the cultivators think that number 18's healing pills are the best. All of our pills are inferior to hers. This is what makes us most unconvinced. These laymen don't know the real situation at all. They actually dare to speak without thinking. How hateful!" Chu Feihu coldly snorted. "How can the healing pills refined by me, a dignified alchemist, be inferior to the healing pills concocted by a doctor?" Everyone nodded. "That's right. This is completely discrediting us. Maybe it's a rumor deliberately spread by number 18. If this continues, she's going to step on all of our heads." Everyone's words made Chu Feihu's face even more unhappy. In fact, since the pill refined by number 18 became popular, Chu Feihu's heart had been very unhappy. In the past, although his healing pills were sold at the most expensive price, the sales were still very good. It was a big way for him to earn money. However, recently, the sales of his healing pills had dropped a lot. In the past, there was not enough to sell every day. Now, there was a surplus every day. Now that he heard such rumors, the anger in his heart could be imagined. Chapter 3109. Compared to the intense denouncing of the pharmacists and doctors gathered together, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were extremely calm practitioners in the room. However, this was like the calm before the storm. The four of them were very clear in their hearts that they would most likely encounter a violent storm. However, they were not the slightest bit afraid. Having a large number of people would indeed give them a certain advantage. However, it would not be able to have a decisive effect every time. Not long after, Bailey Hongzhuang's door was knocked. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three could not help but look at each other. A hint of understanding appeared in their eyes. The opponent's speed is really fast. You all should be mentally prepared. Shangguan Ying lightly laughed. In the face of a powerful enemy, there was not the slightest bit of nervousness. In reality, those who have nothing to lose are not afraid of those who wear shoes. They were originally newcomers to Penglai Island. They were not afraid of losing anything. "Open the door," Di Baichen said in a deep voice. Following the opening of the door, Bailey Hongzhuang noticed that there were several unfamiliar faces outside the door. The other party only had 5 people. This number was undoubtedly much better than what they had imagined. Chu Feihu and the other 4 clearly did not expect that there would be 4 people in Bailey Hongzhuang's room. For a moment they did not know who the real master was. "Who is number 18? Chu Feihu coldly said. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly stood up. Her gaze was cold as she looked at the 4 people outside the room. She said, "I am. What business do you all have with me?" As early as the moment she saw the other party, Bailey Hongzhuang had already confirmed that they were pharmacists. This kind of faint medicinal fragrance and arrogant aura could only be displayed so vividly on the body of a pharmacist. After Chu Feihu and the other 4 saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was so young, a hint of surprise quietly flashed across their eyes. "Since you are number 18, you should naturally know why we are looking for you. If the few of you are here for the matter of me selling the healing medicine, then please leave. In this devil training pagoda, everyone has the freedom to sell things. You should know this, right? Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. Her eyes and brows were relaxed, as if she did not realize that the other party was looking for trouble. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude, Chu Feihu and the others' faces couldn't help but turn gloomy. It seemed that the other party didn't intend to change her mind at all. A brat who's still wet behind the ears dares to spout nonsense in front of us? Do you know who we are? One of the alchemists behind Chu Feihu couldn't help but ask. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at them indifferently and said, "Is it important to me who you are? Isn't it fine as long as you can reason it out? Am I wrong?" Chu Feihu narrowed his eyes. He had underestimated this number 18. He didn't expect her to not have stage fright at such a young age. Clearly, she had already made plans to deal with this. It is indeed your freedom to sell healing medicine. However, you are also discrediting us when you are selling healing medicine. This is your fault, Chu Feihu said casually, but the accusation in his words couldn't be more obvious. Since you are a newcomer, you should follow the rules of every place. If you want to break the rules like this, you will suffer sooner or later. Chapter 31:10. I wonder what the rules and traditions you're talking about are? Di Beichen stood beside Bailey Hongzhuang and looked at Chu Feihu calmly. However, his aura was unrelenting. If your so-called rules and traditions mean that whoever makes a better product will be banned and suppressed, then it seems that your rules and traditions should be changed. Otherwise, how can there be any progress if you keep immersing yourself in such an environment? As Di Beichen's voice fell, the faces of Chu Feihu and the other four immediately turned ugly. Their gazes towards Di Beichen were filled with fierceness and sharpness. Young man, you're a little too arrogant to rashly say these words without knowing anything, Chu Feihu said coldly. Bailey Hongzhuang said faintly, "What do you want to say? Just get straight to the point. I believe that none of us are idle people." She wanted to see what kind of excuse they had come up with to pin a crime on her. If this reason was not suitable, then don't blame her for mocking them. Chu Feihu and the others looked at each other. They thought that their appearance would make the other party fearful. However, they did not expect that the other party would not react at all. Instead, they were forced to make a move. This was really out of their expectations. However, since things had developed to this stage, they could only directly state their intentions. "I advise you to stop selling the healing medicine now." "Why should I?" Bailey Hongzhuang asked back. "Why should I?" Chu Feihu chuckled. "Because we've been here longer than you and know the rules here better than you do." Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a smile. "If I asked you to stop selling, would you stop? Don't joke like this. Everyone is very busy." "Young man, don't be too arrogant. Do you really think that we have no way to deal with you?" Bailey Hongzhuang's arrogant attitude had already angered Chu Feihu. He had been in the demon training tower for so many years and had never seen such an arrogant junior. "How do you plan to deal with me?" Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. "You don't have any reason to stop the sale just because you want me to? Isn't that a little too much? If this news gets out, I'm afraid your reputation won't be too good, right?" When it came to the pharmacist, this kind of guy who flaunted his seniority, if he didn't directly expose their sanctimonious appearance, there was basically no use. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang did not back down, Chu Feihu also knew that she was not a coward. Ordinary words would probably have no effect on her, so he immediately stated his reason. "I've heard that many people say that your healing pills are more effective than the ones I've refined." Chu Feihu chuckled. "I don't know if this is a rumor you deliberately spread, but such a statement is too ridiculous. You, a fledgling doctor, actually want to compare the healing medicine that you've concocted with the healing medicine that I've refined. This is simply a fantasy." Chu Feihu slightly raised his chin, his face full of arrogance. It could be said that he was very clear about the methods that these juniors used. They actually thought that they were great just because they had some ability and actually wanted to provoke him. This was looking for the wrong target. Chapter 31:11. What's the problem with that? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Aren't the healing pills that I've refined better than yours? Chu Feihu's expression froze when he heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words. He stared coldly at Bailey Hongzhuang. What nonsense are you spouting? Although I don't know the effects of the healing pills that you've refined, I'm not interested in spreading rumors. Since so many cultivators have said that your healing pills are not as effective as mine, then it must be true. After all, the eyes of the masses are as clear as snow, isn't that so? Bailey Hongzhuang blinked. Her expression was sincere and innocent, as if she was stating a fact that everyone knew. Ha ha! Chu Feihu suddenly burst into laughter. Did I hear wrongly? At this moment, not only Chu Feihu, even the cultivators behind Chu Feihu burst into laughter. Could it be that I'm wrong? Bailey Hongzhuang looked puzzled. If you're not afraid of me, why are you in such a hurry to prevent me from selling my healing pills? Isn't this usually the tactic of the loser? Once she said that, Chu Feihu and the others could no longer maintain their smiles because they could not refute Bailey Hongzhuang's words. When Ziran and Shangguan Yingying heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words, they could not help but give Bailey Hongzhuang a thumbs up. She had hit the nail on the head. The market was often the place where the value of an item could be best reflected. Whether an item was good or bad was not based on the seller's words, but on the sales volume of the item. If the sales volume was good, it proved that the item was good. If the sales volume was bad, what was the use of exaggerating? What a sharp-tongued brat. Chu Feihu's gaze was gloomy. So you're saying that you're determined to fight me head-on? I'm naturally more than happy to have the opportunity to exchange pointers with you, Senior. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. However, if you can't defeat me with fair means and use underhanded means behind my back, I'm afraid it'll be very embarrassing if word gets out. Humph. Do you really think that the healing medicine you concocted is invincible? I'll let you know what a true top-notch healing pill looks like. At that time, when you're chased out of the devil training pagoda, don't beg for mercy in front of me. Chu Feihu was already infuriated by Bailey Hongzhuang. With a flick of his sleeve, he turned around and angrily left Bailey Hongzhuang's room. It was clear that he was prepared to go back and deal with Bailey Hongzhuang. Seeing Chu Feihu's group of 5 leave just like that, Shangguan Yingying was somewhat astonished. They left just like that? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and said with a faint smile, Why aren't they leaving? What do you think they want? Fighting is the style of a cultivator. Pharmacists can't do that, Di Baichen added. I thought that this matter would never end. I didn't expect that they would leave just like that without taking any advantage with their mouth. To think that I was prepared for battle. After they went back, they really began to think of ways to deal with me. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled slightly. Her beautiful eyes revealed a clear understanding. These people's alchemy skills shouldn't be bad. They want to chase me out and eliminate the negative comment. They must want to use their true strength to defeat me. Chapter 31:12. What's more, they don't actually see me as a powerful opponent. Before, they just disdained to compete with me, but after what I did just now, it has completely ignited the anger in their hearts. Therefore, they will definitely create an even better healing pill to defeat me, in order to make me accept my defeat. Bailey Hongzhuang slightly raised the corner of her mouth, her eyes filled with confidence. As an alchemist, she had many opportunities to interact with alchemists, so she understood their psychological state very well. As long as she grasped the opponent's weakness, then everything would not be complicated. Compared to dealing with Lu Mingxiu and those despicable cultivators, sometimes using an open scheme to deal with alchemists was much simpler. So you're saying that they want to create an even better healing pill to defeat you? Shangguan Yingying said in surprise. Bailey Hongzhuang slightly nodded. That's right. If I'm not wrong, the opponent should be willing to pay any price to create an extremely good healing pill, and even lower the price in order to squeeze us out. I'm afraid that things are not that simple. Di Baichen shook his head. Just now, the alchemist leader was obviously a proud and arrogant person. I think he would have spread this news to the entire Emolian Pagoda, letting everyone know about the contest between you and him. In this way, as long as you lose, then you won't have the face to continue staying in the demon training tower. Following Di Beichen's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' gazes changed a bit. Beichen said too much. Just now, that old guy really might do such a thing. Hongzhuang, you have to be mentally prepared. When Ziren slightly frowned. These arrogant old guys always like to do this kind of thing. I actually overlooked this point. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows and looked at Di Beichen, the smile on her lips gradually widening. However, it's still not certain who will be the one to lose face in the end. Hongzhuang, do you have the confidence to compete with that old guy? Shangguan Yingying asked curiously. Bailey Hongzhuang blinked. If I didn't have the confidence, I wouldn't have provoked him like this. Anyway, we have nothing to lose. Even if we really lose, we'll change our appearance and come back with a different identity. What would they know? Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. It was because they were in no rush that they didn't have to worry about any possibility of failure. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Shangguan Yingying and the others couldn't help but laugh. Haha, this is really a way of thinking. Beichen, your family's Hongzhuang has been led astray by you. Now you're saying such a shameless scheme without blushing at all. When Ziren shook his head, this was not in line with the image of Bailey Hongzhuang in his mind. Di Beichen raised an eyebrow. I think it's pretty good. That afternoon, a piece of news once again shook the demon training tower. Chu Feihu, who was highly respected in the alchemist district, had been provoked by Dr. Number 18. The two of them had agreed to compete to see who could concoct better healing medicine. Whoever lost would have to leave the demon training tower. Such explosive news stunned everyone for a moment. No one thought that Dr. Number 18 would actually go against Chu Feihu. Chapter 31:13. This news was specially spread by Chu Feihu. With all the alchemists and doctors as his helpers, this news could be said to have spread abnormally fast, and it was completely from Chu Feihu's point of view. It was as if Bailey Hongzhuang had just arrived and did not follow the rules, thinking that she had some ability and wanted to challenge the authoritative alchemist of the entire demon refining tower. Chu Feihu saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was too arrogant, so he could not help but want to teach Bailey Hongzhuang a lesson. Regarding this news, people with discerning eyes knew that this was probably the result of the alchemists and doctors collectively pressuring Number 18. After all, Bailey Hongzhuang did not do anything before. It was the alchemists and doctors who requested to prohibit the sale of Bailey Hongzhuang's healing medicine. Today, as soon as Bailey Hongzhuang said that she would continue to sell the medicine, this matter happened. Most likely, it was Chu Feihu who took the initiative to find trouble. However, everyone also had a suspicious attitude towards Bailey Hongzhuang. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang came to the demon refining tower, her behavior had always been very mysterious. Until now, no one knew her true face. Xiao Yihan inexplicably helped. Lu Mingxiu inexplicably suffered 2 losses at Bailey Hongzhuang's hands, and now the alchemists and doctors collectively came to find trouble. Everyone could not help but sigh. This Bailey Hongzhuang was really a troublemaker. It seemed that no matter where she went, trouble would follow. Therefore, everyone felt that perhaps Bailey Hongzhuang was an extremely arrogant person. Otherwise, she would not have caused so much trouble. Chu Feihu and Number 18 are at odds. This time, we really have a good show to watch. Chu Feihu's alchemy skills are very powerful. All the alchemists in the demon refining tower are led by him. In my opinion, there is no suspense at all in this competition. Number 18 cannot be Chu Feihu's opponent. Perhaps this so-called competition was just deliberately fabricated by Chu Feihu and the others to show fairness. Number 18 might not have agreed at all. Now that this rumor has spread, Number 18 has no choice but to agree. Everyone had stayed in the magic refining tower for quite some time. They had seen many methods of using pressure to force the other party to agree, and the people who were best at using this method were the alchemists. That's true. Number 18 is really unlucky. She just wants to sell some healing medicine, but there are so many people looking for trouble. Everyone in the Mou pagoda sighed endlessly. Almost everyone had already believed that Bailey Hongzhuang had to get out of the Mou pagoda this time, unless she could shake Chu Feihu's identity, but this was tantamount to a fantasy. After Bailey Hongzhuang heard this rumor, a hint of interest appeared on her calm face. Sure enough, Chu Feihu wants to use this opportunity to force us to leave. This Chu Feihu is really shameless. He was clearly the one who came looking for trouble, yet he spread the rumor that we took the initiative to provoke him. It makes it seem like he was forced to make a move, showing the demeanor of an expert. Shangguan Yingying was secretly speechless. This Chu Feihu was already so old, yet he still used such methods on them. It really made people speechless. Chapter 31:14. The three beasts looked at the calm expressions of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three, and felt a burst of admiration in their hearts. If it were anyone else, they would have been infuriated long ago. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were still as calm as ever, as if all of this had nothing to do with them. As soon as this news spread out, the upper echelons of the Demon Refining Tower were inevitably alarmed because of its great influence. When Steward Qin found out that Bailey Hongzhuang actually planned to fight Chu Feihu head-on, he felt a burst of helplessness in his heart. He really didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang would fight Chu Feihu head-on. Previously, when the group of alchemists and doctors carried out a collective protest, he felt very helpless. However, these old fellows usually all had stubborn appearances, relying on their own ability to be extremely arrogant. Most importantly, with so many of them working together, they were bound together for good or ill, which made it very difficult for the Demon Refining Tower. Even he felt a headache when he looked at this group of people, so every time they argued, he would pretend that he didn't see anything. Otherwise, these guys would definitely anger him to death. This matter was clear in everyone's heart. Chu Feihu and the others were simply unreasonable. Bailey Hongzhuang had only produced a healing medicine that was selling well. Just because it blocked their interests, they were asked to stop selling it. Now, these guys were becoming more and more arrogant, and their actions were becoming more and more arrogant. If Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't alone, or if she could show more value, Steward Qin wouldn't mind mediating a bit. However, the gap in strength between the two sides was too great. It didn't make sense for him to stand on Bailey Hongzhuang's side. On the contrary, he would be disturbed by those guys' endless chatter, so he could only turn a blind eye to it. If a doctor wanted to compete with an alchemist, this was simply an impossible competition. As everyone knew, becoming a doctor was much easier than becoming an alchemist. This was because alchemists needed to have enough talent to reach this step, and doctors needed to be serious enough. Just on this threshold, alchemists had to be higher. Usually, the value of the pills refined by alchemists was much higher than that of the pills refined by doctors. This was the difference between the two. The healing medicine made by Bailey Hongzhuang was indeed much better than that made by ordinary doctors, but alchemists had more outstanding pill formulas. Once Chu Feihu got serious, how could Bailey Hongzhuang compare? Therefore, Steward Qin could only sigh after knowing all of this. He admired Bailey Hongzhuang, but he wouldn't help. The only thing that made him glad was that he was fast enough to get his hands on Bailey Hongzhuang's healing medicine formula. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang left now, they wouldn't lose much of their losses. After hearing this rumor, Sweet Dream was completely dumbfounded. As soon as she knew about Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude, she knew that this matter wouldn't develop well. However, she really couldn't understand why Bailey Hongzhuang would agree to compete with Chu Feihu. Based on her understanding of Bailey Hongzhuang shouldn't be such an impulsive and overconfident person. Wasn't this forcing herself to a dead end? Chapter 31:15. Sweet Dream could not help but look for Bailey Hongzhuang. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's door was already hung with a Do Not Disturb sign, which made her even more flustered. Sweet Dream, you don't have to worry about Bei. Since the situation has already developed to this point, there is no turning back. Why don't we continue like this? Shangguan Yingying was the first to speak after seeing Sweet Dream. She did not need to think to guess Sweet Dream's intentions. If we fail, won't you all leave the demon refining island? Sweet Dream asked anxiously. Seeing Sweet Dream like this, Shangguan Yingying sighed inwardly. If Sweet Dream really fell in love with Bailey Hongzhuang, it would be a big problem. Although they had some conflicts with Sweet Dream before, Sweet Dream had always been helping them after everything that had happened. They were not willing to hurt such a girl. If it really comes to that, then there is no other way. Let's just leave, Shangguan Yingying said slowly. Shangguan Yingying said slowly, however, Bei might not necessarily lose. There are many unexpected things in this world. Sweet Dream's eyes could not help but darken when she saw how indifferent Shangguan Yingying was when she spoke of leaving. She had never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would leave. It was only after Shangguan Yingying's reminder that she remembered that no one could stay in the demon refining tower forever. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three could leave at any time. What is young Master D doing now? He is busy preparing the healing medicine to compete with Chu Feihu. I'm afraid he won't come out for the next 2 days. Sweet Dream nodded. I see. Seeing Sweet Dream's dispirited figure leave, Xiren could not help but poke his head out with a helpless expression. The falling flowers are willing, but the heartless brook is heartless. Beichen, do you want to consider giving your Hongzhuang to Sweet Dream? I don't mind giving you away, Beichen said lightly. Bailey Hongzhuang was busy refining pills at this moment. The entire room had been wrapped up by her essence power. The movements outside could not be heard, so she could refine pills with peace of mind. There were many types of pills in the area of healing. Bailey Hongzhuang also had many pill formulas. However, she needed to consider what kind of pill Chu Feihu would choose to refine. She only needed to refine a pill that had a better effect than Chu Feihu's. If she were to use precious pills in order to obtain victory, she would indeed be able to obtain victory, but it would not be worth it. She believed that Chu Feihu would not refine pills that were too valuable because that would be a loss to his own interests. But ever since she saw for a while, gathering all the types of pills together, there were simply too many possibilities. In the next second, Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze fell on Xiao He and Xiao Bai. She said, Xiao He, Xiao Bai, I might need your help today. Hearing that they could be of use, Xiao He and Xiao Bai's eyes lit up and excitement flashed across their faces. Master, do you want us to eavesdrop on Chu Feihu's plans? Chapter 31:16. Master, don't worry. Leave such a small matter to us. Xiao He and Xiao Bai patted their chests and made a solemn vow. As long as they shrunk to their smallest size, no one would notice their existence. Furthermore, their cultivation was not weak at all. With Chu Feihu's cultivation, it was basically impossible for him to discover them. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded gently as the corners of her lips curled up slightly. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. As long as she knew Chu Feihu's true intentions, she would be in an undefeatable position. Master, we'll be off then. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded gently, be careful. I'll wait for your good news. Don't worry, there won't be any problems. In the next second, Xiao He and Xiao Bai quickly shrunk their figures and turned into 2 small dots, one black and one white, as they slipped out through the crack in the door. Speaking of which, it was precisely because the residences of the pharmacists and doctors were open to the public that Bailey Hongzhuang was saved from a lot of trouble. She only needed to investigate to find out where Chu Feihu lived. She believed that Chu Feihu must have deliberately schemed to defeat her this time. Therefore, he should have started refining the pill a long time ago. Not long after, Xiao He and Xiao Bai returned. The two beasts' faces were brimming with excitement as they said, "Master, you've guessed correctly. Chu Feihu has already started refining the pill." "Do you know what pill he's refining?" Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Xiao He nodded. "I heard him talking to someone else. He said that he's refining the nourishment pill." Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's deep and beautiful eyes flashed with understanding. "It seems that in order to be able to drive me out of the demon refining pagoda, he really spent a lot of money. The nourishment pill was a 5th-grade pill and was extremely valuable. It was definitely not an ordinary pill that Chu Feihu usually sold. Generally speaking, as long as the cultivator's injuries were not fatal, the cultivator would be able to recover quickly after taking the fusion replenishing pill. This kind of pill was normally equivalent to a life-saving pill, but Chu Feihu actually used it to compete with her. It seemed that not only did he want to chase Bailey Hongzhuang out, he also wanted to use this opportunity to tell everyone in the demon training tower that his true strength could not be underestimated. In this way, with Bailey Hongzhuang as a stepping stone, Chu Feihu's reputation in the demon refining pagoda would reach an unprecedented height. Sure enough, it was a good plan. "Master, what do you plan to do?" The three beasts looked worriedly at Bailey Hongzhuang. Chu Feihu was not an easy person to deal with. They must find a way to defeat Chu Feihu. In the next second, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and said, "Since he wants to refine the thawing supplement pill, then let's refine the thawing supplement pill too. Let's see who can refine the best thawing supplement pill." "Won't it be very difficult to determine the victor like this?" Baisher asked worriedly. Bailey Hongzhuang's smile was unfathomable. "Only then will there be suspense. This will also allow Chu Feihu to dig his own hole even deeper." Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's expression, the three beasts could not help but look at each other. Every time their master showed this kind of expression, it meant that someone was going to be in for a bad time. Chu Feihu was still so pleased with himself. They were afraid that he would be in for a bad time in 3 days' time. Chapter 31:17. While Bailey Hongzhuang and Chu Feihu were in seclusion, concentrating on refining the fusion replenishing pill, this competition continued to ferment. The crowd's enthusiasm was not reduced at all because of Bailey Hongzhuang and Chu Feihu's seclusion. Instead, many people who wanted to see the world in chaos opened a bet at this time, betting on who would win in this competition between Chu Feihu and number 18. However, everyone's opinions were almost one-sided. Almost everyone believed that Chu Feihu would win without a doubt, so Chu Feihu's odds were abnormally low, and Bailey Hongzhuang's odds were shockingly high. Unfortunately, even if Bailey Hongzhuang's odds were shockingly high, there were still not many people who were willing to bet on Bailey Hongzhuang. When Di Beichen and the other two heard the news, they chose to bet on Bailey Hongzhuang without hesitation, and this bet was a heavy one. Di Beichen noticed that Bailey Hongzhuang's odds were 20-1, and Chu Feihu's odds were 1-0. 5. This kind of odds was too ironic, and many people even treated this as a joke. Therefore, Di Beichen did not hesitate to bet 10,000 spirit stones on Bailey Hongzhuang's victory. When everyone knew that someone had placed such a heavy bet on Bailey Hongzhuang, they were shocked. 10,000 spirit stones, that was a wealth that no one could ignore, and someone actually put it on a bet that they would lose without a doubt. However, after Di Beichen took the lead, some people who wanted to take advantage of the situation also bet on Bailey Hongzhuang's victory, but the price was very low. I don't know who started the bet, but this odds are completely mocking Hongzhuang. Shangguan Yingying's face could not hide her anger. 20-0. 5. Doesn't this mean that Bailey Hongzhuang's strength is only 1/40th of Chu Feihu's? This is looking down on Bailey Hongzhuang too much. Who else could it be? Ziren patted Shangguan Yingying on the shoulder, comforting her not to be too angry. Isn't this good? With 20 times the odds, we can earn 200,000 spirit stones. Such a good way to earn money is not easy to come by. Who? Shangguan Yingying raised her eyebrows slightly. For a moment, she did not understand Xiren's deep meaning. If it had been an ordinary cultivator, everyone would have been certain that Chu Feihu would win, and this bet would not have been set up. There is only one reason why this bet could be set up. Chu Feihu's people did it on purpose. They want to use this method to build momentum and put more pressure on us. As alchemists and doctors, none of them are short of money. Even if you take out some spirit stones, they won't care. What they want is a complete victory. Di Baichen slowly explained. Hearing that, Shangguan Yingying finally understood. Oh, I see. No wonder you suppressed so many spirit stones together. It's their money, it's a waste not to earn it. Di Baichen smiled faintly. I think the situation is getting more and more tense. If Hong Zhuang doesn't win this time, we won't be able to stay on the demonic refining island any longer. These guys are really troublesome when they cause trouble. Shangguan Yingying sighed. As the 3-day agreement was getting closer and closer, this matter became more and more popular. Now that things had developed to this point, there was no turning back. Chapter 31:18. Everyone believes that he won't fail. Once he fails, he'll fall from his pedestal. Xiren raised his eyebrows. I'm looking forward to seeing Chu Feihu's expression when the time comes. Shangguan Yingying saw that Di Baichen and Xiren weren't worried at all. She couldn't help but feel relieved. I just hope that they won't go back on their word. 200,000 spirit stones is a huge sum of money. They had concocted so many healing medicines, but they still hadn't earned that many spirit stones. As long as they got the 200,000 spirit stones, they would only need to cultivate in peace. They wouldn't need to compete with Chu Feihu and the others at all. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. When Bailey Hongzhuang opened the door, Di Baichen and the others were already waiting for her. They weren't the only ones. Sweet Dream had also rushed over early in the morning. Today's competition could be said to have attracted everyone's attention. Many people had already begun to pay attention to the movements of both sides. Are you ready? Di Baichen stared at Bailey Hongzhuang with a charming smile. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. She knew that because Sweet Dream was here, Di Baichen had to pay attention to his words. I'm ready. I can sell it directly. At this moment, Sweet Dream suddenly said, Young Master Di, because this matter is a bit too sensational and there are too many people paying attention to it, the higher-ups have invited you and Master Chu to the counter to introduce the effects of the healing medicines you'll be competing in. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang was surprised. There's such a request? Sweet Dream nodded. This matter was decided at the last minute. Master Chu has already agreed. But young Master Di, if you don't want to, you can wear a mask. In the Devil Refining Tower, anyone who doesn't want to reveal their true appearance will do so. No one will find it strange. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen looked at each other. The three of them also told them with their eyes that they had just heard the news today. I understand. Bailey Hongzhuang replied as a wisp of contemplation appeared in her clear eyes. At this point, was there any need for her to continue concealing her true appearance? She did not hide her appearance before Chu Feihu and the others, so there was no need for her to continue hiding before the people from the Demon Training Tower. Because of her identity as an alchemist and doctor, other cultivators would not deliberately cause trouble for her. She, who lived here, did not have to worry about Lu Mingxiu causing trouble. This was also the reason why Chu Feihu and the others never hid their true appearances. If that's the case, then let's go directly, Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. Mr. D, aren't you going to wear a mask? Sweet Dream was a little surprised. She had already prepared a mask for Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. There's no need. Brother Bedchamber has already attracted so much attention. If I wear a mask, it'll make me look weak. Why don't I just go like this? Di Baichen and the others nodded as well. In fact, they only wanted to cultivate quietly from the very beginning. They had not thought about hiding their appearances when they were heading to the arena. They had only done so to avoid trouble after provoking Lu Mingxiu. Now that there was no trouble, there was no need to hide their appearances. Chapter 31:19. Although it was still early, many cultivators had already gathered near the counter. Everyone's faces flashed with interest. They hadn't seen such a lively scene in the demon refining tower for a long time. Not only were the weaker cultivators here, but even Xiao Yihan and Lu Mingxiu had also appeared here. Of course, the main reason for this was that number 18 was too mysterious. Everyone wanted to see what kind of person she was. I wonder if number 18 will reveal her true identity today. It's been so long, and no one has been able to find out her true identity. It really makes people curious. I heard that number 18 and Chu Feihu will personally come here today. We'll definitely see her. This guy dares to challenge Chu Feihu, so he's very likely a powerful character. That's not necessarily true. Number 18 will definitely lose today. Isn't him coming here just a disgrace? Everyone was discussing animatedly. Compared to Chu Feihu, everyone clearly paid more attention to number 18. Not long after, Chu Feihu, a group of alchemists and doctors arrived at the counter. Fortunately, this place was spacious enough. Otherwise, with so many people gathered here, they wouldn't be able to squeeze in. Chu Feihu looked around and saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had actually appeared later than him. A hint of displeasure flashed through his eyes. Master Chu, number 18 definitely doesn't dare to compete with you directly, so she doesn't dare to appear now. At this time, someone's flattery made Chu Feihu reveal a satisfied expression. That's not necessarily true. When she provoked me before, her attitude was very arrogant. She didn't look like she was afraid of me at all. That's because she didn't expect you to be serious with her. That's why she's really afraid. The smile on Chu Feihu's face gradually widened. Today, he really did come to see Bailey Hongzhuang make a fool of herself. A little brat wanted to compete with him. He would definitely make him lose so badly that he wouldn't even be able to lift his head. After everyone present noticed Chu Feihu's arrogance, they were even more certain of the outcome of this competition. They were certain that number 18 really didn't have the guts to appear. It's already late, and number 18 still hasn't appeared. Does she not dare to come? If she doesn't dare to come, she should have said so earlier. As long as she gets out of the demon refining tower, there's no need to waste everyone's time. Some young people really won't shed tears until they see the coffin. What's the use of knowing fear now? The pharmacists and doctors behind Chu Feihu began to ridicule him one after another. They didn't want Bailey Hongzhuang to not appear like this. If that happened, it wouldn't be fun today. As more and more people mocked Bailey Hongzhuang, the smile on Chu Feihu's face became more and more brilliant. He hadn't come out for a long time, so many people didn't know how powerful he was. Taking advantage of today's opportunity to show off, he missed this feeling very much. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others approached the counter, they saw this scene. Chu Feihu, who was like a moon surrounded by stars, was extremely conspicuous. Bailey Hongzhuang noticed him almost immediately. Chu Feihu's face turned cold when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang. "You're finally here,"